Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot, presented by our good friends over at Little Caesars Pizza. We're Stay Hot. They're hot and ready with their... we're Stay Hot. They're staying hot with their hot and ready. No, we're Stay Hot. They're staying ready. We're Stay Hot. They're staying ready with their hot and ready pizza, ready for you all NFL season long. I'm getting myself tongue-tied with this saying at this point. Like you say a word long enough and it just doesn't sound real anymore. That's how Stay Hot is to me.
Yeah, I rarely conceptualize like what our name means. It just is.
But get on over to Little Caesars and get yourself a hot and ready pizza from Stay Hot. Get the Stay Hot meal. But Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today? We're going to be talking about some NFL football. We're gonna take a look at the current playoff picture and see what teams are real and what teams are cake. It's like those.
I get it. I see.
Okay. I didn't know if you guys would pick up on that. But how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing okay.
That's usually my line, buddy.
Yeah,
I'm doing all right as well.
Adventure for you, Theo.
Fine, I can make something up. I've had the same 5 songs stuck in my head for the past week. I don't know if I've ever had this many at the same time, but I just cannot stop. I can't get them out of my head. It's like just the chorus of all 5 just on repeat over and over and over and over.
Dude, I just have these loud voices that won't stop playing in my head.
It will not stop
Does
playing.
anybody else?
What are the songs? What are the songs, Theo?
What are the songs? It's.
I thought they were always playing in your head. How do you not know?
Well, I'm trying to think of the artists who sing them. I know how they go. One is Slippery People by the Talking Heads.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
One is Feelin' by the Laws. One is Walls by Beck. One is Black Rum by Cake Pop and Dylan Brady. And then another is Folded Hands by Zoo Animal. These 5 songs,
None of these songs are Tachyon Airplane by Blaiden Kirk, and I'm confused as to why. No. But Matt,
haven't spun that one in a minute.
Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Trying to think.
You're thinking
I got nothing.
clearly.
I've been watching football and basketball, and that's pretty much it. I'm excited for the NBA season. We're a week away, and I'm ready to go to war for LaMelo. So I'm preparing myself
for about
that.
3 weeks until he gets hurt.
Yeah, man. But for those 3 weeks, it's going to be awesome. It's a terrible, terrible franchise to go to war for.
No. It might be time to go to war against.
Go to war against the Charlotte Hornets.
I mean, it's...
We're 3 weeks away.
You see those anonymous scout reports? Those kill me, man. They just say whatever they want. But, I kind of get it because I'm sure they have a bunch of takes they don't want to get off publicly.
What are you referring to?
There's articles like Sports Illustrated will interview anonymous scouts.
Yes.
And they had one where somebody was really negative on the Bucks, and they were talking about Giannis and how or the Dame trade and how it's good because it made Giannis happy. And I thought that was kind of a backhanded compliment to the trade because it was a good trade regardless. And now there's one that came out. They've been going division by division. There's one that came out talking about the Hornets, and it's LaMelo Ball is just a flashy social media. They're calling him a social media point guard, really. But he's no Herbert, so I think that's wrong.
The take machines inside the league have to be so good. We never get them because we always get media takes, but obviously people working for the franchises are never going to give theirs. But every time these anonymous scouts come forward, it always sounds insane. They're just not talking about the same things that the media is talking about. And they always just go off on the crazy tangents that always social media. It's almost, you wouldn't even see tweets like these. sometimes. So I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I need to be a part of this someday. I need to get a front office job and just hear what the professional takes are.
People are like, draft day isn't like real life. I'm like, something tells me it is. Something tells me it's worse.
Like before the draft, Bob McGinn always releases his anonymous scout surveys. And like every year, every single player just has like scorching takes on them, like every year. And it's awesome. I'm like, I can't imagine being in a scout
didn't go
room.
to his
Like
21st birthday,
people have just got to be going to war in there. But
they call it the war room for a reason.
That's true. They do call it that.
They do. But we're not here to talk about the draft. We're here to talk about the current NFL playoff picture and how that could project into the end of the season. But before we get into that, we have to talk a little bit about the Monday night disaster class by Justin Herbert and the LA Chargers. I know you're trying to go out, see your favorite football team, maybe your favorite basketball team with the basketball season getting into motion. Maybe you want to see Wemby in action. Well, the best way to get the best seats at the best price is with the app Game Time. You can get, like I said, the best price on the best tickets, and you get that little view where you can see exactly where your seat is going to be and exactly what you're going to be able to see. And with Game Time, you just get the best price on the best tickets guaranteed. They have their best price guarantee, so it takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. Matt, did you want to add something?
No, I think you said it all.
All right. So you know what that means. Got to head on over to gametime.co or download the Game Time app and use the code BlaidenK to get $20 off your first purchase. You're already getting the best price. We're giving you $20 off. It's literally the perfect deal. So again, terms apply. Create an account, redeem the code BlaidenK, that's BLAIDENK, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Yeah.
It's not his fault.
It wasn't a great performance by Herbert by any stretch. It was probably one of his worst ones, but everyone has a range of out. You got to play a bad game at some point. Like Tom Brady's got his worst games. And
what can you say, man?
What can you say?
What elite quarterback has not had a stinker this year?
I don't know.
Maybe Mahomes. I'm trying to think.
Purdy has now. Has Tua had I don't think Tua's had too bad of a stinker, although I don't think his Giants game was necessarily.
The Giants game wasn't. He threw two really bad picks, but
he did. So I don't think that statistically it wasn't a stinker, but I think maybe he hasn't because we're talking about by his standards and that's not a total stinker. But maybe he hasn't. Has Goff? I don't know if Goff has.
Maybe not. But he's had his fair share of stinkers in his career.
Definitely.
It's balancing out right now.
Yeah, it's been a brutal year for quarterback play. I feel like it's the defenses have kind of caught up, and I think it's as simple as that. They're really good right now. You look at an old-fashioned defense now, like someone who maybe shouldn't be, is kind of a dinosaur, stuff that worked years ago. It just all looks so static and so flat compared to the rotation heavy, hybrid coverages that you see from these modern guys. I think it's really difficult to figure out. And I think this isn't even about Herbert anymore. Herbert just missed some easy ones. Herbert,
it really does come down to that. He just missed throws for the most part.
Yeah.
Because Herbert can figure these things out, and he's one of the few who can. We're kind of in a wonky era, but Herbert really can throw over the middle of the field, and he can make some great reads and is the arm to hit everything. So one game doesn't change your skill set.
Yeah.
If we know there's a knock on Herbert, he probably puts a bit too much heat on it, throws the ball really hard, and then it's kind of just tougher to drop it in the bucket like that. And sometimes he'll miss high when he really fires those things. And that's what it's kind of what went down last
Keenan, the throw to Keenan.
Keenan.
That was such a nasty route.
Yeah, just gotta hit him and put a bit too much on it and missed. And It happens. That's within the range of outcomes for a Herbert game. It's on the low end, but it is.
It's within the range of outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't help that the Chargers' run game was as bad as it could possibly be, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know how else you could put it. The offensive line played point blank, like, miserable game.
Yep.
Sawyer had a really bad game. Slater had a bad game.
Yep.
I think they had, the stat is they were averaging like 2.5 yards a carry, but if you take out the Herbert scrambles, it's like 20 carries for 30 yards. Yeah, it was ridiculously bad. And it was a rotation of guys doing it for Dallas too. Hankins had a really good play. I think 97, whose name slips me, had a really good play. Marquise Bell was playing particularly good in that game. He kind of messed up on the screen to Eckler and like the first drive, but outside of that, man, he was different. He was flying downhill. He had one where he got down and in the backfield for Eckler, and he had a couple. He was just he's a lighter guy, but he was really good down the field, and I think he's been playing pretty solid for the Cowboys all year.
Yeah, he's been decent. He's been kind of a surprising, I think, player to see out there because he plays that linebacker role and he's so skinny, like kind of that safety hybrid for them. And they really lean on him. And I think it's been up and down, but young player, kind of strange archetype. It's good to see some flashes, and last game certainly was. And they need more stars on the defense from somewhere, like on the second level, not just in the defensive line. And their defensive line is really deep, but guys on that second level and third level. Bland has a lot of potential, and then it looks like 14, is capable of some plays as well. So, I'm very concerned about the Chargers' offense, though. I just think that they're just kind of destined to need a soft rebuild here. Like, outside of Herbert, it's just so brutal. It is so brutal. And I really hoped that the offensive line would be one of the better units in the league this year. Like, on paper, it looked decent because Sawyer came in and he didn't play so bad last year as a kind of a late round rookie. And Trey Pipkins probably had the best year of his career, and they were getting Slater back, and Zion Johnson was a year older. Like, it had more, I thought, potential than most of the lines across the league, but they got torched. They drafted the wrong receiver in Quentin Johnston. In a big way.
They whiffed on that badly.
And you could see it at TCU, like he doesn't play like he's 6'4".
There's just not quite enough there, I agree. It's like the archetype that he was going to succeed in, which was like this physical sort of like, okay, your size and speed combo is really special. That's how you're going to win. You're going to be a physical guy down the field and, sometimes have to catch one. He just doesn't really, like, his skill set does not complement the athletic profile he has, I guess.
Yeah. And he's just not that crazy of an athlete either. Like, I don't think that he has like true breakaway speed or like crazy ability to get out of tackles. Like, he's just kind of out there and not really good at anything right now.
I just think that they got themselves into too much of a mind. Like, okay, last year we talked all year about, Chargers' problem is they don't have enough like downfield threats or whatever. And like, that was true. But then I think they got themselves too locked into, okay, well, first round, we're taking a downfield threat. And it wasn't a great year for receiver. And their options were Jason, who wasn't that, Addison, who is very good, but wasn't that, Zay Flowers, who is but was smaller, and that's probably who they should have taken. That Flowers went the pick after Johnston, right?
Yeah, it was. I think it was him and then Addison. And looking back on it, it was a mistake. But I mean, I could see how the idea.
It's just too need based. It was way too locked in on like, we need not only a receiver in a weak receiver class, we need this type of receiver, and you don't have 100 options there. You have one. And that's who they took, and it's just not how it's not a good process at all.
No, it wasn't a good process, and Telesco's just had a disaster past couple of years, and I don't understand why he's still around, honestly, because they spent so much on their defense and every single free agent has been a bust. Like Khalil Mack, he had a bunch of sacks against Aiden O'Connell, yeah, but he hasn't been worth the trade.
No.
JC Jackson is one of the worst free agent signings of my lifetime.
I mean, that's going to be on list for the next 20 years.
Yeah. It was really bad.
I mean, you traded him back to the team he went to like not even a year and a half into it, dude. I mean, that's like that's pretty
about
bad.
About as much of a net negative as you can possibly get.
And Sebastian Joseph Day and Eric Kendricks haven't fixed their problems. Like against Staley, I think once Staley gets fired, my hot take is going to be as a defensive coordinator, even though his defenses have been so bad. Like I'm not totally out on the idea because I look around at the talent on the team and it's just like, bro, these corners aren't that good. Their other safety, I'm forgetting it, Nasir Adderley retired when he was kind of in his prime and like a solid starter for them. There's just no good interior defensive line play on the team. Bosa has been out of the lineup a ridiculous amount. Like, I just don't understand. I guess Staley probably could do a better job because it's just been so bad. Like,
I guess, and I don't really have like a set reason as to why this is, or so maybe it's just like a take. But if you bring in a bunch of guys and then all of a sudden they start playing, like the bottom of their range all the time, does that speak to Staley at all? And here's the thing. This is assuming that Staley is not in on who they bring in as a defensive head coach on the defense,
Right. Yeah, and maybe he just hasn't simplified things enough. He's a really complicated guy to play for because he's really big on changing game plans on the fly. And each game plan is kind of fixed on what their opponent does as instead of like what they do well. And it's just a lot to practice and you don't have a great roster. And maybe it would be better if you just kind of like stuck to one thing and got everybody really comfortable in like one look. And instead it's a bit more, it's like a lot more complicated than that. And that's good. Like you want to be versatile game to game and you want to be able to do that in an ideal world, but sometimes it just, I think, can't be done. And right now it just hasn't quite looked like at any point this defense was like ferocious. And looking back on it, maybe it should have been simplified, but it's also on Telesco, like even more so. Like Telesco, I think, has done a more egregiously bad job because I don't know. And the wide receiving core, I think, it's just really not his fault. I don't think. I really just don't think it's a bad game, but I don't think the Chargers are going to be very good this year at the end of it, and I just don't think that's on Herbert. I really don't. He didn't draft Johnston.
I don't think the receiving core is necessarily like Allen still is good at what he does. Now we can debate the value of that. But he gets open, he finds space, a lot of completions to him. It's good stuff. Williams, I think, can still do his thing, but as far as how much
not anymore because he's hurt,
Yeah.
When he's healthy, he can do his thing. Palmer's been pretty solid.
But as far as how much they've invested into wide receiver, which rivals pretty much any team now in the entire league, you'd have to say. I mean, I'm trying to think of, I guess maybe the Dolphins have because they traded multiple, like they spent a lot of picks and a lot of money on their guys. But, that's the standard. If you're going to go be one of the highest, investment teams at wide receiver, you got to have one of the best receiver rooms, and they just don't really at all.
And
it's definitely not the worst unit on their team, though. Like, of all the things that they need to fix, I don't know if receiver necessarily is at the top of the totem pole anymore.
That's the problem, because the receiving room is not good, and there are units that are worse. And I just don't know where they go from here because they already paid Herbert. And, like, what are the building blocks? Like, how many guys do you feel good about on the Chargers outside of Herbert, like, going forward?
Not many.
It's not many.
I mean,
They've got to go through like a complete rebuild around Herbert once Herbert has already gotten paid, because all the ingredients Telesco has gotten over the past couple of years have all been bad. All the free agent signings have been bad. All the first round draft picks have been bad. Like,
yeah, it's.
And I mean, that's really what it comes down to. You know, it's the only way out of this is through year by year drafting well.
And a new coach, maybe. Like, not Kellen Moore, not Brandon Staley, like not either of them, like someone better than that. And that's kind of probably, I guess, who wouldn't want the chance to come work with Herbert. But what offense can you design if the line is playing like this, you know, and you only have one reliable receiver, and he's just, I shouldn't say he's just anything because he gets so much production, but like, he's not really someone who's going to threaten down the field too much. He's not.
If the Browns fire Kevin Stefanski, the Chargers should be making a phone call.
I don't think the Browns will be firing Kevin Stefanski.
I don't think they should fire Kevin Stefanski, but I know a lot of Browns
if they make the playoffs,
like
and I think we'll get into that. I think they will.
A lot of Browns fans think Baker could still be a Hall of Famer, probably. Like, a lot of fans think is never good.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. But I don't know. I feel like a general rule is like if a large collection of fans do not like a unit of the team, then it's probably closer to being on the hot seat than not. But
yeah, I guess so. But
I think that's generally true. If if you trade for a guy and you haven't seen him, and you see all of the fans of the opposing team being like, "Let's go, this guy stinks," probably isn't good.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I do think we got to at least give some praise to Dak, though. Who?
Oh yes, we talked all about how screwed the Chargers are.
Had a much needed master class. I'm going to go out and ball game. It could have been even better too, because there were a couple of deep throws to Gallup that didn't quite get completed. That would have been touchdowns, and he could have put up some really crazy numbers. The first one maybe was on him. The second one, he threw that post, and it went right off of Gallup's hands, or it just barely got tipped. He was on the money, and it was not like it was just everything was perfect and he was sitting in there and firing away. I mean, the out of structure stuff from him was next level, and he got it done for them.
Yeah, much needed one in prime time.
Yeah. The narratives needed this to happen in prime time. It couldn't be against the Bears on 1:00 on a Sunday or whatever,
right?
Or whichever bad team, the Panthers. Not to call it anyone specifically, but and he was twisting and turning and getting back to stuff.
He looked like 2016 Dak. He looked like old Dak. Dak used to do that kind of stuff all the time.
Well, it was weird because they would run the ball. They would run like inside zone on first down, get no yards, then run inside zone again on 2nd and long, and then they'd be in 3rd and 11. So they were almost forced to put Dak in that position to where he had to do that. Right? It wasn't like all right, just go get him, Dak. It was we're gonna just put it wasn't like an intentional, we're gonna put Dak in a bad spot, but like the play calling was just not putting Dak in a great situation, and he found a way.
They had a horrible rushing day.
Oh yeah.
It was like the worst.
This is another example of the numbers look even worse once you take out the quarterback running. Although I will say part of that comes off a designed run on the read option. Although that read option going for a touchdown on the Chargers, it could have picked up the first. That was on the Chargers, dude. You see two guys going to CD, who's like running a motion in the backfield, and there's nobody there. It was rough stuff. But outside of that, Pollard had 15 carries for 30 yards. I mean, just
awful. Terrible rushing efficiency. And I 100% agree, Blaiden, that it wasn't so much as McCarthy's like, I'm going to let Dak do his thing because he's on one, and more like, well, the run game is just completely not working, completely out of it. And
I have no choice but to go to him. And he and CD had a great game as well, because the Chargers don't have anybody who can hang with CD whatsoever. So he was on another one. And again, I thought Gallup had a good game, even though the numbers didn't show it. Or at least he had a couple of open, deep shots that were taken and just not quite completed. And I don't know if I quite blame either of them on him.
Yeah. Brandon Cooks coming out and having a good game was nice.
Yes, Cooks as well had a few really big catches.
Yeah. Did you ever figure out if that the touchdown that he had, if that was just like a money throw by Dak, or if it was just a great box out?
You know what? I don't think I quite
because they didn't show a good angle on the replay.
I think it was a mix. I think it was a great throw, and Cooks boxed out a little bit, but yeah.
I have one more take from this game, and that was at the very end. There was a throw to Pollard deep down the field, and it was incomplete. It was a sure touchdown, and it was incomplete. Dak overshot Pollard a little bit. I thought that was on Pollard. I don't think that was a bad throw by Dak. I think that it's tough when you're a running back, so I don't necessarily say like Pollard needs to catch it because it would have been tough. But Dak threw that thing so high. It was a total moonshot. Pollard had time to run under it, and he just kind of, started backpedaling when I think he could have sort of ran through it a little bit more and tracked it over his shoulder. He kind of had to square it up and dive backwards. I thought it was not. I didn't think it was horribly placed. I thought that was
even if he catches that. So I think it's not a perfectly placed ball, because if he does track it over his shoulder, he's still going to have to drag the toes to bring that in. But yeah, when he was trying to find that, he's running and the ball's coming on this side on his over, like for those listening on Spotify or on Apple, it's like coming over his right shoulder, and he's looking over his left shoulder and then like twisting his body, like twisting his left shoulder to the right side. And what he could have done was turned over to his right side and like looked over his right shoulder, and that would have made it an easier catch. But again, he's a running back. It's like that's not necessarily a skill set you would expect.
It's just tough to hit running backs down the field. That's why they don't run routes
to make that play. You would expect Saquon to make that play, but that's about it.
I just didn't think that was an egregious miss from Dak. I just didn't love the way Pollard handled it in the air, but they won, and it doesn't really matter. That was just a take that I had.
Because Johnston got bullied.
He got escorted out of the way.
Oh my gosh.
So let me scooch on by you there.
And that was Gilmore. Gilmore's not been playing super well this year, but
yeah, I think Gilmore has kind of lost a step, but I think he's been playing decent. I think that he's not quite locked down, but like I
don't think he got thrown at too much in this.
He got ran away from Keenan Allen ran away from him on a crosser once.
Wow, that's a slow off at this point. It's hard to fool Gilmore, and I think he still has good ball skills, and like he can match footwork and kind of stay in someone's hip pocket. But I just remember against the Jets, they played some man coverage, and like the first play of the game, Wilson ran a slant, and if he was targeted, it probably would have been a house call. And then later they put Wilson back to the side of Gilmore. He runs another slant versus man coverage. That one was actually a house call. And then they started lining Garrett over there all the time, and the Cowboys stopped playing man coverage. I was like, okay, Gilmore won a defensive player of the year in a cover one heavy scheme. I just don't think it's quite like that anymore. But I don't want to say he's like some huge negative, because that was a very nice play on it by him.
He's also 33 years old.
And the dude is admirable for still being in the league as a corner. Yeah, so I don't want to be like harsh on him.
He's just not. He's not a number one corner.
Stephon Gilmore. He's close.
I think he could get in. I think he could
with a deep boy corner. That's not.
Yeah, it's not easy.
I always imagine how I'll feel when I'm like 50, because some of these guys get in when they're old. And I'm like, when I'm sitting there at age 50 and Gilmore's on the ballot, I'll be like, sure, why not? He deserves. You guys, what do you guys know about Stephon Gilmore? Like, that'll totally be my mindset.
He's got 2 first-team All-Pros, 5 Pro Bowls, with a depoy and a long, good career.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
think
think
so.
somewhere down the line we could be like, yeah, Gilmore
Not first ballot, but
he's
but they
not first
let
ballot.
that level of resume in pretty consistently. Just about every year, you're going to see somebody get into All-Pro, 5 Pro Bowl.
yeah.
Yeah, he's certainly.
Can you tell the
In the
story of the
conversation.
NFL without Stephon?
Oh my God.
Anyway,
You're right. We can't
we
can't
can.
let him in. This episode of Stay Hot is presented by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has a code when you sign up. That code is Stay Hot. And if you use code Stay Hot, they will double your first deposit up to $100. Now, once you've used this code and once you've made your deposit, what can you expect to find in the Underdog Fantasy app? Well, you can expect to find anything and everything related to fantasy sports. We got fantasy football. We got fantasy baseball. If you want to put some money on these playoff series that have been happening, we got hockey in full swing, the regular season there. NBA is coming up, PGA. And we got drafts, a 3-person draft, a 6-person draft for individual games. Like, we got pick'ems for individual games. We got rivals. And that's, you look at 2 running backs and you pick who you think is going to have the better game. So they got a lot of different sports and a lot of different game modes and a lot of different fun things to do. So check out the Underdog Fantasy app. Use code STAYHOT. They will double your first deposit up to $100. That is code STAYHOT. And yes, download you want to download the Underdog Fantasy app so bad.
Anyway, let's talk about the NFL playoff picture as it stands. The way I think we're going to do this is we're kind of going to go team by team, see if the playoffs were to start today, who would be in, and then say, will that team actually make it come week 19? But I do think we can kind of start off with some of the higher up seeds and just say, okay, these teams will be in. Like, we don't need to talk too in depth about like the Niners. Like
Niners or Eagles for 1 seed.
Yeah,
I think
Niners, Eagles, Lions. Those are the NFC.
Oh,
lines.
yeah. Lions as well. Which one of those teams is the 1 seed?
To me, it's the 49ers right now. I think despite their loss versus Cleveland, a tough defense where they shot themselves in the foot several times and were hosed at the end by bad penalties.
The Browns were hosed.
And they missed a field goal.
And they missed 2 field goals.
And the Browns missed a field goal too. And they were without 3 of their best players. So, I mean,
the Browns were with, who were their best players? Garrett, I guess Chubb.
They were without Chubb. They were without Batonio, and they were on a third string quarterback who had been on the team for 5 days.
You're right.
That's true.
Right.
Any sort of excuse we can give for the 49ers is quickly nullified by 5 day into the onto the team PJ Walker.
You're right. I was about to contest
I'm not saying
Watson
Watson
being described as one of your best
one of their
players.
best. I'm just like, it's like it's not like they didn't have anyone that even knew the playbook in there.
You're
man.
right. I think that the 49ers are still the best team, though. I think that when you look at the Eagles, their offense is also fantastic. But to me, I don't know. It's both pretty close. I think the offense is just running a little bit smoother right now. I think the skill position talent is even more loaded.
Because both these offenses had bad days, but both of them were against defenses that you kind of expect that from. The Browns defense is just like that, and the Jets defense, I mean, we saw what happened to Allen, where it's just,
they did have their corners out, though.
That's very true.
They did have their corners out. So that game, the Eagles game, really, I think Devontae Smith had a bad day. There were some really big drops from him. There were some interceptions that were deflected on a screen. There was one where Jalen Hurts' arm got hit, although I maintain that he should not have brought the ball back in that situation. Where it lands after that, like sometimes it goes right into the ground, sometimes it goes where nobody is. The fact that that got picked, definitely unlucky. Drops, unlucky. And I thought Hurts honestly played a pretty fantastic game. Him and Brown both.
The first 3 quarters were good, and then
were really high level. And it just didn't result in points on the board because of unfortunate turnovers and then some bad drops, I thought, which is really not like Devontae Smith. So not too worried about that offensive performance. Honestly, I don't know what the hell Hurts was seeing on that last pick.
Who knows?
It escapes me.
Yeah.
I mean,
or the last throw.
Last throw. It was crazy late. And it was there too. But Hurts threw 95% of the game. I was expecting like a Hurts bad game. I'm like, this might be his best game of the season until he started kind of falling apart at the end. But he was crazy accurate out of structure. Like plays that I never thought had a chance ended up having a real chance or even getting completed. Like he was stiff arming a guy and made a throw at the same time. The go route to AJ Brown up the sideline was money.
The stiff arm throw was stupid.
It was amazing. He had some amazing runs too, like maneuvering around the pocket. Like it was a very out of structure day for him, but he was great out of structure. So I actually think Hurts played pretty well, and other because they put a lot on him as well. They hardly ran the football in this game. That first drive, if you watch it, it's like a heroic effort by Hurts. He's throwing into tight windows every single play down the field, and then runs it in when he got like hit almost in the backfield. Like it was actually not that bad of a performance by Hurts until the end when he made just inexcusable decisions. But at any rate, I just think the 49ers, they've got a skill position player playing like an MVP candidate right now in Christian McCaffrey, which I don't think is unfair to say. Like McCaffrey is playing unreal, like out of his mind football right now.
I think I really do think McCaffrey has always been like this, and it's just been.
I think he's running even a little better now than he has, but maybe I
really believe. I mean, I'll say this: like on a bad offense for a lot of years, he was gone to at such an incredible rate. He can do it all. I like the 49ers for the 1 seed as well, but my main reasoning would be that the Eagles' schedule is brutal, and I just don't think the Lions are quite the team that the 49ers are, even though their schedule is very possible. You look at the Eagles' schedule, I mean, okay, it's Dolphins, Commanders, Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills, 49ers, Cowboys, Seahawks as their night. It's like, dude, that's, I mean, all playoff teams and a bunch of like contenders all back to back to back to back to back to back. I think if you expect these teams to be favored in a lot of games, I mean, the Eagles might play 2 or 3 games in that stretch where they're only going to be favored by a few, or they might not be favored if it's on the road. I don't think you can say that for the 49ers, who play a real schedule going forward, not like last year, but just not as many tough, heavy-hitting matchups. And I think those can not only be tough games within themselves, but take it out of a team. So I like the 49ers as well, and, very much believe your schedule matters a lot. So
the more I think about it, the more I do think, and Matt, I agree with you, the schedule matters a lot here. So I don't think Philly's going to be the 1 seed because they do play an outrageous last stretch of the season, or I guess middle stretch. The middle stretch is really hard for them. Their last few games aren't so bad. San Francisco's schedule is not a cakewalk.
It's not a cakewalk. It's not as hard as the Eagles.
It's not a lock.
I know where you're.
The Lions' schedule going forward is kind of a joke.
It's very easy. It's very, very, very easy. They've already gotten through. Really, the Chiefs game was a big one. They play at the Ravens. That's a tough one. And then it's Raiders, Chargers, Bears, Packers, Saints, Bears, Broncos, Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings.
They could win like all of those.
They're also just not banged up right now. Well, no, their defense really is. Never mind. That was dumb to say because their defense is pretty snake bitten. But I was thinking, like, in terms of their stars, like their line is playing really well right now. I guess their left guard they're actually more injured than I. Never mind.
The offense is still playing. The offense is playing well. The offense is playing well. And the defense has had a lot of guys step up this year. We talked about their defensive line. It's like if all of those guys hit, if all of those guys take a step, it'll be a really good unit. And they all have. Brian Branch has been fantastic. The secondary play overall has been miles better than it was a year ago. I don't think it's unreasonable that they could be they could
They
win
are in
13,
the mix,
14
100%.
games
I
and be
think
the
they're
one
definitely
seed.
in the mix. They've got good weapons too, like Amon Ra is really good. Laporta is like more than solid. He moves around really well for a guy his size and has good hands. Like he's a big threat in the receiving game. Guys can't really hang with him. And I think Reynolds, number 8, is like a good complementary receiver as well. Like super solid in his been.
Teams.
He's been impressive in every game that I've watched him. So you've got like this good group of receivers. You've got Goff, who's being protected really well. The offensive line is, to me, maybe the best in football right now. Like they are really, really, really locking it down. And when Montgomery is in, that just makes it even better because that guy is a bouncer as a pass protector. Like that guy is a bodyguard. So it's really tough to hit Goff. And Goff is just playing with all the poise in the world right now. I feel like he's not worried about getting hit. He is hanging in there more than we've seen in the past for him. And I think he's just feeling it right now. He's willing to be more aggressive. He's willing to take chances more than I think I've seen in the past. And right now is able to pull it off at an efficient level as well. He hasn't been throwing it to the defense like too much. It happened once during the Packers, but like, and I think versus the Bucks, he was kind of fortunate maybe that some didn't go to the Bucks. But overall, I think that he is playing about as well as any quarterback, obviously outside of the Allens and the Herberts or the tier 1 guys in the league. But again, it's a down year for quarterback play. The Lions do have one of the better ones if you're just stacking it up like 1 through 32 right now.
Yeah, no question. And Laporta is on pace to have like one of the better rookie tight end years. And I mean, he's on pace for like, I mean, just from a numbers standpoint, like 800 yards and 10 touchdowns or something crazy.
Yeah, and Ben Johnson. One thing that I think worries me a little bit more than the passing attack right now in Goff is actually their running game, just because Gibbs doesn't quite seem to be a great fit in their under center scheme. And he's actually one of the less explosive backs in the league right now. If you look at the efficiency charts, like he's kind of near the bottom, even though it's clear when you watch him that he has a lot of explosiveness. It's just doesn't seem to be a great fit in that offense. And now that Montgomery is banged up, it's like, so where do we go at running back here?
What numbers specifically? Because I'm seeing that Gibbs averages about half a yard more than Montgomery does, and maybe that's just because Montgomery takes all the short yardage work. So that's probably unfair.
Yeah, I think Montgomery does do a bit more of the dirty work, and when what was the chart? It wasn't just yards per carry. It was like maybe broken tackle rate or EPA per run, like on the same chart. And Gibbs was near the bottom on it was using more advanced metrics. I'm sorry. I wish I could cite my source better, but if you
get Gibbs on the outside, you can definitely see that explosiveness at work. It's on those inside runs where you don't really see him push the pile, right? And that's what I think what Montgomery adds a little bit more of an element to.
Yeah, he's more comfortable in those condensed areas, I think. But we'll see that needs to get figured out because that's kind of their calling card, and I think that definitely needs to be great come the playoffs. Like, their rushing attack needs to be pretty much as good as it can be for them to like win the Super Bowl. If they're going to be the 1 seed, that would be the expectations. So, I'd like Montgomery to be healthier and maybe Gibbs. Things changing with Gibbs by the end.
I really like their schedule for them to go out and.
No, I don't disagree.
Be the 1 seed. It's such a cakewalk. But
I'm still going Niners though.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The Niners are the better team. I agree, but I think the schedule matters a lot here.
Does that bring us to who's winning the NFC South? We kind of already talked about this in an episode last Wednesday.
Yeah, because we looked at every team except for Carolina, who maybe they could make a run.
It's Tampa right now, is it not?
It's Tampa by, I think, a tiebreaker. I could be mistaken. It's Tampa half a game up.
I still buy that. I know that they just lost to the Lions and Baker had a pretty bad performance, and they don't have the quarterback that you'd typically expect from a division winner, but neither did any of the other teams in the division. Like, we had a big NFC South episode last time. So There has been a week of football played, but it's not like the Ravens or Saints or the Falcons or Saints won either. So I think pretty much remains the same.
Yeah, neither of those teams really separate themselves.
It was another really bad rushing performance from Atlanta against Washington. Like, they just don't have that to lean on while Ritter struggles.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be neck and neck. It's not going to be like Tampa pulls away, I don't think.
No.
And one thing that they're going to struggle with a little bit more is they have a couple more big matchups on their plate that I don't like them in because they won the division last year and with how NFL schedules work.
Right.
It's just so tough. None of these teams are really super inspiring, but I think maybe Tampa is prone to beat up more on the teams they got to beat. Whereas with the Saints and the Falcons, maybe the stars are a little bit more aligned schedule-wise, but there's just no guarantees for them.
Have the Bucs played the Falcons yet? I don't think they have.
Nope. No. That will be this weekend.
That's going to be a game to watch out for. That is going to be a big one to watch out for. And I just think Tampa is better. I do. I think that they have skill position players that are actually kind of living up to their billing in terms of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, whereas the Falcons with London and Pitts, it's kind of been more up and down. Like, I think they have a more consistent passing offense, Baker over Ritter right now. And again, I would love to say that the Falcons have the way better rush offense, but they just don't have a great one right now, like by any metric. So
it's going to be an ugly running game. I mean, the Falcons and the Buccaneers have two of the best rushing defenses EPA wise, like right now, and neither of them are very strong running the ball. So it's gonna come down to who's got more juice, Baker or Ritter.
Oh man, this is gonna be Theo's Wednesday night football game next week. I can already tell it's gonna be awful.
Yeah, Vea and Chris Lindstrom isn't a matchup for Chris Lindstrom. It's such an undersized offensive line in Atlanta. Like, Vea could just probably line up and run a stunt through maybe all of them.
You could line
laterally across the line.
The whole left side of the offensive line. You can line anyone up anywhere, and they will probably win against anyone on that left side of that offensive line, including the center.
So,
but yeah, it's in Tampa. Tampa's favored by 2.5. I don't know either. I like to think it's going to be Tampa. I still buy them as winners in that division, but it's a mid-off.
Yeah, it's going to be close.
Yeah, but Tampa has it right now as the 4 seed, but it's too hard to tell as to where that'll go. But I find it hard to believe that like another team like sneaks in is like the 5, 6, or 7. Make Little Caesars, the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, part of your game day. Order online during our Pizza pregame 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, plus all day Sunday. And get ready for some football and some fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Either way, you win. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the game. Which at 5, we have currently the Dallas Cowboys coming off a win against the Chargers.
I can buy that. I mean,
yeah.
I think that a lot of the things I was afraid of with the Cowboys are kind of coming true. Like, I feel like McCarthy made the wrong adjustments to Dak's pick problem last year. I think he saw so many, especially in the playoffs, drives, or especially in the last playoff game, drives ending in turnovers, and just said, that was our number one problem. We lost because of the turnovers, which is probably true. But this year, it seems like things are kind of more reined in, And I don't necessarily think that's the kind of positive for the offense that an old school coach like McCarthy thinks that it is. And on the defense, I think they're good versus bad teams, but when you start to get one of these Shanahan tree guys, like they just have gotten torched, I think, both times when you bring in a lot of motion and you bring in a lot of gap scheme against the 49ers and against the Cardinals, like they got slashed. When it's a more typical like pocket passing, like old pro style offense with, you know, receivers to bully like Quentin Johnston, or a weak offensive line that you can just tee off on, like the Chargers and the Jets and the Giants, like, and the Patriots, like they can just annihilate these teams. But against the really tough ones, I don't think the Dallas defense has the juice. So, which I've already talked about, but you don't face too many.
Yeah,
the offense is good enough.
When most of the NFC is like not good, you're probably gonna be okay. Like how many?
Like they're better than 3 out of the
offensive
4 NFC North teams. They're better than the other 2, or the 2 of the other NFC East teams, and they're better than all the NFC South teams. They're probably still a 5 seed despite some issues that I think will prevent them from winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes down to, now we're talking about the expectation being them as, you know, the top wild card team, and before the season we're talking about the expectation as them being, you know, a contender. So the bar is kind of moved down so where their problems are not worse than, you know, a Seahawks or a Rams, who are the next 2 teams.
Yeah, and so I think they can definitely be the 5 seed. Seattle, I don't even know how to feel about Seattle.
I think Seattle's better than Dallas. I think.
Really?
Oh yeah, I think it's easy. Maybe it's not easy. I really like Seattle though. I think that
I like Seattle too.
I think that I would take their defense over Dallas's.
I don't know, man.
Their secondary is quite good. Their secondary is getting there. Like,
it's filth. I love Witherspoon. I love the way he's been implemented into this defense. Obviously, Woolen is still very good, but
Trey Brown isn't bad. Like Michael Jackson isn't bad. You've got Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams is back, and I think Adams has been playing well since.
The secondary is stupid
in a small sample size.
But
Burrow looked very back last week, like the whole Bengals offense did. Mm-hmm. And then they run into Seattle. Like, I think Burrow's feeling fine. I think everybody's feeling fine. But Seattle just was pretty suffocating, you know.
But if this was a running team.
Yeah, they still don't have maybe the horses in the front 7. It's kind of flipped. Like the Cowboys have such a good front 7, and I think their secondary without Diggs is a little problem. Can be a little bit but I don't know, man. I think this Seattle's defense is poised to really break out. You know, these last 2 weeks, it was really historic versus New York, and you know, then they bottled up Cincinnati. I really believe in them.
They do have some dogs in that secondary. I worry about if a team like, which I guess is a high bar. Again, it's like San Francisco, Detroit, and Philly.
I mean, I trust them more against San Francisco than I trust Dallas at this point.
McCaffrey's running for 300 against
maybe he does. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if if San Francisco can run on anybody.
Yeah, but
I don't know. I like Seattle more than Dallas.
I can definitely see it. I don't. Their offense, I think, is probably has some more juice. Also,
I don't know about that. I think their line needs to get healthy. They've been extremely banged up.
I don't know. I think Goff kind of diced him up a little bit. I think Stafford kind of diced him up a little bit.
Stafford did, but I think
they always lose to the Rams.
Woolen was out for those games, I think.
And Woolen was out in those games.
Your Honor,
I do
they
believe.
always lose to the Rams.
They always lose to the Rams. McVay just knows what they're gonna do and just kills them every single
It's
time.
McVay, man.
And
You can't expect to beat McVay.
I definitely do worry about. I mean, the offensive line is.
Yeah,
it's in shambles right now. No doubt about it.
yeah.
They're not in a different tier than the Cowboys, probably, but I think that I prefer Seattle.
I could see it.
They're about the same, though. I think that they're.
I could see it. I think Dallas probably has the tougher schedule going forward. But
Yeah, that might make.
I can't go up in arms against that, I suppose, because I don't think Dallas looked like particularly dominant against the Chargers or anything. It was a nice win.
Yeah.
And maybe part of the take is, Dak is better than Geno. We just saw a Geno stinker versus a Dak masterclass. Maybe that's really short-sighted. But it helps.
Yeah, I think they're in the same tier. I think a game against each other would be extremely entertaining because I think they would be very, very, very easily matched.
The script writers
Do
will
they
have
play?
a blast with this one.
No.
They don't? Damn.
Too bad.
Well, maybe we'll see them in the playoffs. Probably not, but not playing against each other.
That brings us to the Rams as the last seed.
In the NFC, yeah.
As it stands right now, it's the Rams, but it is through a 4-way tiebreaker between the Commanders, the Falcons, and the Saints.
I think the Rams are better than those teams.
I think the Rams are better than all those two. Yeah. Stafford's so much better than all of those quarterbacks.
They're not bad at all. Like,
they're not. The receivers are really nice.
And the defense is pretty good. Their defense is no kind of liability, and I think Raheem Morris deserves plenty of head coach consideration because of this fact. I mean, their defense looked awful on paper going into the season.
The paper does not like that Rams defense.
No, it looked terrible. It was all unproven starters, and Aaron Donald. How is that supposed to work? But they're not a bad unit at all, and I think it has a lot to do with coaching. It's really, I think, a confounding defense to play against because there's a lot of hybrid type stuff where there's man on one side of the field, there's zone on the other, like in these split field concepts. So it's kind of tough to ascertain exactly what they're playing and where to go post snap and pre snap as well. They'll play one safety high and then one that's sort of in between the box and up top. It's I don't really know what to call this pre snap. They'll play man, but they don't, I think, like to play press man. So everybody's off the ball, which you don't get kind of that clear man coverage look, but they still play a decent amount of it. It's a tough nut to crack, and they like to blitz from depth as well. It's a tough puzzle to solve, and they've got players that I think are performing admirably. I think versus a really good offense, you probably just don't have the guys to match up. But number 97, Hawked. I don't know. It always reminds me of clearing your throat sound when I see his name. He hasn't been so bad. Number 0 has been a nice complimentary. Yeah. He's been a good complimentary piece to Donald. And Donald is still elite.
Yeah, Donald is very much agree.
So,
Byron Young is interesting, man, because he's such an athlete too, and he's already gotten a really nice start to his career. They might really have something.
The rookies, the Rams rookies stepped up. They had a lot of. Again, I remember the Brett Coleman podcast. No, I don't remember. I guess Brett Coleman. He did a podcast episode where all they did was look at the Rams. I mean, he did that for every team, but in the Rams episode, he was again, if they have 14 rookies that are going to be on this roster, if a fifth of them hit, if any number of any 4, 5, 6 of them hit, Like what's the league average for like percentage of rookies hits? Like 20%, 30%. If you get that on 14, like that's a net positive. If any of those players can be decent starters right away.
And Avila has been great. Dotson has been good. And let it be known, Steelers fans are being so stubborn about my Dotson victory lap. I
think that's such a funny thing to argue about on Twitter.
It's so funny. And I'm like, I don't understand why I even have to argue it, because it's such a stupid little thing. Like I watched more Steelers tape that I don't know why I did this, but I like meticulously charted 3 Steelers games at the end. Like I wrote down every play, like notes on every play for 3 full games of their offense. And like every game, I'm like, okay, James Daniels is not good. Mason Cole is not good. Dan Moore is not good. Their right tackle, whose name I can't remember, is not good. Dotson is also not performing at like some kind of really high level. But I mean, listen to the names I just listed. One guy I can't remember, but Steelers fans know who he is. James Daniels, Mason Cole, and Dan Moore. This wasn't like some take where I said he was playing better than like Lane Johnson or something. Mm-hmm. It's just like he's a good trade target. He was arguably the best starter on that line, which is statistically like not a crazy take on his blown block rate and like his pass block efficiency. Like that all backed me up. And they were like, you're fucking crazy, dude. Like, no way it wasn't James Daniels. It's like, dog, why are you guys so mad about this? And then they traded him, and now
they like the day.
He's a good starter. Like he's a good, solid starter. He's not like some superstar. But Avila and him both playing very well. Cup is back. Nakua is back.
Yeah, now it's like the receivers are kind of nice.
Like, right, like where are they going to regress on offense? At least, like it looks pretty legit to me.
Yeah.
They've got their offensive line isn't crazy, but Stafford is still Stafford very much. The elbow looks great, and they've got really good receivers now, and even Tutu Atwell all of a sudden has become a serious piece for them. I mean, this is a receiver room so stacked. Van Jefferson couldn't even stay, in the rotation. And
yeah, I think about coach quarterback combo. That's probably like the most important things you could have. Stafford and McVay is about as good as it gets. And what other 7 seed is there? There's Green Bay. Maybe if they get their shit figured out, it could be. But then it's like, again, like they've got a lot of shit to figure out.
Yes,
I'm saying that they probably won't catch the Rams. No.
I don't disagree. I mean, it's like
the Packers have talent, like if targeting Christian Watson all of a sudden becomes a positive instead of a huge negative, and Gary starts playing more than like half the snaps and like a lot of butts, and like Jordan Love plays at a higher level than he's played these past couple of weeks post bye. But it's like, it's a lot of ifs. If Aaron Jones comes back healthy and this hamstring injury doesn't linger, like then they might have the talent to pass the Rams. But like that's way too many buts right now. Yeah. The Vikings probably don't have it.
No.
The Commanders like probably don't have it.
I think their biggest threat is one of these NFC South teams walking through an easy schedule and getting like 10 wins. I think that's really their biggest threat.
Yeah, but I think if you put the Rams in the NFC
I like the Rams
South,
over them, but the Commanders in the NFC East, dude, that's brutal. And I don't think they're as good as the Rams. I don't think the Packers are up there. So if they were going to lose out, I think it'd be to like the Falcons or the Saints, kind of just stringing together. I mean, again, those schedules are ridiculously easy. I think it would be that. Yeah. But I agree, Rams 7 seed.
I think it's pretty tough. I mean, this is a boring way to say it, but I think right now the NFC playoffs look like very, very, very possible. I think just the quarterback situations in the rest of the conference is so bad.
Yeah.
That it's kind of tough to see.
Outside of Kirko.
Yes. Outside of Kirk, who is perfectly good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And outside of Ritter.
Outside of Ritter and outside of Bryce Young.
Outside of Ritter at home.
Well, he's not undefeated at home anymore.
It's such a sad way for it to go out. But AFC.
So the conversation about who's the 1 seed between probably just Kansas City, Miami, but if we want to throw Baltimore and Jacksonville in there also.
I don't think Baltimore and Jacksonville are on the level of those two teams right now.
No, I don't think so either. I think the Bills have a shot.
I think the Bills have a shot, and they're pretty banged up, though. It kind of makes me worried about them.
They'd have to get healthy.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that for them.
The offense of Miami is so ahead of everyone else right now.
Yeah.
And they're going to get Ramsey back.
And they're going to get Ramsey back towards the end. Their defense has not been, to me, above average. It's probably been about average. The Chiefs have the better defense. And right now their offense isn't on the same historical pace as the Dolphins. But
it's like a good defense.
I've seen Mahomes win the Super Bowl twice before. So, like, I kind of trust it in the playoffs maybe more just because we've seen it happen so many times before. And we just haven't yet with Tua and the Dolphins, but that doesn't mean they couldn't do it. I think when you look at the fact that the Chiefs should go 6-0 in their division, I kind of think that they will be the 1 seed. But I think that all of those 3 teams will.
It's going to come down. I mean, Dolphins and Chiefs play. It's probably going to come down to that.
Yeah.
That'll be a good
game. 9:30 a.m. in London.
Really?
It's in Germany, is it not?
Oh, is it Germany?
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be crazy. Frankfurt Stadium.
Football spielen. Amerikanische Football spielen. Sehr gut. Sehr gut.
Do you get up for those games, Theo?
Sometimes when they're good.
That one I might
sometimes I
it's like 7:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on a Sunday.
Really for Theo, man.
Some weeks I do. Some weeks I'll tune in for the fourth quarter or halftime or something. But that one I will obviously be very much seated for.
Yeah. We will be going to bed at 9 p.m. on Saturday to get up bright and early.
In bed at 8:30, out by 9.
Past my bedtime. But yeah, I probably lean Kansas City here. Their division is so bad.
I don't know, man. The Dolphins' offense is so ridiculous, dude.
It is.
It is ridiculous. I think in terms of offense and defense, I think the Chiefs have a very good defense as well. So I still think, like, in a power rankings, I'd put them ahead of the Dolphins, and they're in an easier division. So they're probably still my 1 seed. They're the 1 seed right now, based on everything. Who knows what all goes into that? So I'll keep it at Chiefs, but
they're over Miami only because of conference record, 3-0 to 3-1.
And then the Bills, I guess, would have to be above Miami in the division, which could happen. I mean, they killed Miami.
Miami has a better record.
Right, but to be the 1 seed, they would have to make up ground. Like, they would either be the 5.
They'd have to go and beat the Bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ravens, I think, can still make it. I think Lamar is playing at an MVP level right now, even though that they are snake bitten a little bit and always kind of seem to be.
Yeah, that's how I feel about them. They're just kind of like, they've been, I don't know, maybe a little sputtery. Like, we talk about all these other contenders. It's like we want to see dominant performances, dominant. I feel like there's a lot of games where the Ravens could dominate, and they either go in and make it close or go in and lose. I mean, they should have beaten the Colts, man. They should have beat the Steelers.
I think they'll still make the playoffs, but I do think the Bengals will end up passing them at some point for the AFC North. And the Browns, who we can talk about as well. Well, there's three AFC North teams in the playoffs right now. We got the Ravens, the Steelers,
and the Bengals are right there too,
and the Browns. And then the Bengals are 3-3. I think the Bengals are eventually going to get in. Like, that performance against Arizona, to me, looked like old Burrow.
It was their get right game.
if they have that version of Burrow back, like he was so clearly hobbled at the beginning of the year. Like he is one of the top quarterbacks, and Chase is so good. And I think Higgins can play better than he is now. And the defense made things really tough on Geno. Like that was a really good Lou Anaruno and everyone involved type of performance to hold Geno, make it difficult for him. So in the last 2 weeks, we've seen Burrow look very back, and we've seen the defense play really well. And they were my Super Bowl team before the season. I still think it could be their year after the September when your quarterback has a knee injury. Like defense, it can look a little janky.
It looks as good as ever, doesn't it? Cam Taylor-Britt was playing a heck of a game against the Seahawks.
He was.
Yeah. I think their corners are so much better than they were at the end of last year, obviously, because they were banged up. But Cam Taylor-Britt in particular, I think he had a lot of reps against DK, and he was really holding his own. And I feel like the safety play has not been – I mean, obviously the defense has been good. Maybe I should go back and really lock in and see how they are. But I feel like it hasn't been so detrimental to them that they've been letting up a ton of explosives.
I think the Bengals are probably the most complete team in this division. Like the Browns' defense is generationally good.
Definitely.
The Ravens have the potential with Lamar to be as
the Ravens
good
also got to get healthy at some point, man. I mean, that's what it comes down
healthy.
to. They're always banged up, and they've been banged up to start the year.
Yeah, and then the Steelers, they have a good defense, but Matt Canada will ultimately.
I can't buy into the Steelers.
No.
I'm sorry.
Bad play caller, bad offensive line. Mid quarterback. The TJ Watt is playing at an unbelievable level again. It looks like they've got a defense that can kind of come in there and contend, but it's been a bottom tier offense. And same with the Browns. Like the Browns excite me because the defense is like so historically good so far this season that I definitely think that every year we see great defenses and drag a bad offense into the playoffs. It's way more common that you see a great offense drag a bad defense into the playoffs, but that doesn't mean for like especially notably good defenses, they can't be the engine of a team like an offense can. I think the standard is just much higher, and I think the Browns hit that standard.
But the offense is really bad. And even when Watson comes back, I was watching the Broncos Chiefs game back, and I'm watching Russ, and I'm like, I feel like I'm watching Watson right now. Like, what is
Russ has been better than Watson.
That's saying so. Like, Watson has been not like the Tennessee game was not by any stretch a great quarterback performance, and that's been his best game as a Brown, like by far.
I mean, weeks 1 through 4, even with Watson, the Cleveland was a bottom 5 offense, so it's not like right now they're dealing with some bad quarterback play, but since Watson got there, it's also been bad. Yeah.
Batonio's banged up. It's just a tough outing right now for the Cleveland Browns offense. Like there's just not a whole lot going for them. But the one hope would have been that when Watson did get hurt, DTR came in and was really good. That would have been the thing that could have saved this offense. And he was horrible. He was so bad.
And unlike the NFC, I think that the bubble teams in the AFC inspire me a lot more than the likes of the Commanders and the Falcons and the Saints and the Packers. Like, I think the Texans have real juice with Stroud.
Yeah,
like, if their offensive line could get healthy, they've got a really good pass. Like, they've got a really good pass rush. They've got a great defense right now. Like, they could be pretty formidable. I could see them getting into the playoffs. Obviously, the Bengals, which we already talked about, aren't in it right now and have to kick somebody else out. Maybe if Herbert plays just like out of his mind good, the Chargers can like stumble into a wild card spot. But like I said before, that looks like a pretty uphill climb considering the talent they have on their roster right now. But there are just a few more. And maybe the Jets, like, they're rising. Like, they have got the good defense.
It's almost, I mean, I wish the Rodgers hadn't gotten hurt. I don't know.
I
Their
don't think
schedule is
so.
also brutal. It's a incredible uphill climb. They're right there with them now, though. But it's
Yeah.
2 of their 3 wins have been like defensive miracle games, with the Bills and the Eagles just playing ridiculous. So
I wouldn't say
Yeah.
miracle games. Like, it is a good defense.
Not miracle in the sense that they got lucky. Miracle as in like the defense just balled out to such a ridiculous degree and had like you got 3 interceptions against Hurts and 3 against Allen. That's pretty crazy.
But that's
yeah. Well, but you yourself said that a lot of the Hurts interceptions were kind of like wonky.
There was some wonkiness to it, but I thought that the Jets defense did. I think Hurts played so well because I think the Jets defense made it tough, even with both of their corners out. Like, there was still tight coverage, even with the backups. Like, Hurts wasn't doing easy stuff. So
Gardner's system corner ?
So I think that the Jets defense, kind of like the Browns,
winning big matchups like that off of like how many turnovers did they have? It's just not. It was a great performance, but it's not something that you can sustain for the entire year. Getting turnovers at that rate, from those single game samples. I mean,
yeah, it would be a hard thing to maintain. I think they can hang around, but the offense
it's just too limited, man.
Yeah. I think the thing that excites me most about Cleveland making the playoffs is that their schedule is more favorable than a lot of these other
everybody's
teams.
schedule is more favorable than like the AFC East. Oh my God. Yeah. I don't disagree. And I also don't think, their offense isn't great, but I don't think it's quite Jets level limited. Although it's
got more potential than Watson does have more potential than Zach Wilson, I do think. But
I've yet to see
both of those teams could be usurped. I shouldn't say both because one of them's not in it now. But I think the Browns could be usurped. I think the Steelers are out of it. And the Ravens, I think, are talented enough on both sides, but they just seem to be unlucky. Like, maybe they're cursed. I don't think they're cursed. I think they just built a very injury-prone roster.
They're cursed. They're cursed. They get injured all the time. There's 2 options. Either we can blame that on medical staff we don't know, or they're cursed.
There's the heart of a murdered dead man beneath the field that only they can hear.
I can hear it, guys. I can hear it beating. Yeah, so I would probably go Kansas City 1, Miami 2. Theo, I probably agree with you. Cincinnati will probably end up being okay. We haven't talked about Jacksonville and where they stand.
Their division, I think Houston maybe could give them a shot.
I think Houston could give them a shot, man. I think Jacksonville has looked
okay,
man.
But
this is not. I mean, look, they're 4-2. They're not bad. Maybe we just got ahead of ourselves. But I was expecting like a really, really sharp Jacksonville offense, and it's been way more up and down.
Yeah,
they've been pretty lackluster this year, and they've got more potential, like in terms of results on the field, and they do have a lot of potential. And I think Lawrence is good enough to carry you in some games. Like that Bills game, I thought he really had like an out of his mind performance, and then they followed that up with their biggest win of the season against the Colts. So maybe they've turned some sort of corner and can start stacking some wins up. But yeah, the offensive line has been very disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
They look pretty mid.
It's been, and it was bad last year. Maybe we should have just seen that coming, but it's not any better, and it's such an anchor for them.
Yeah. I could see them falling out of it. There's certainly no lock.
I don't want to say out of the playoffs. I think they could get challenged for the division. I think it's definitely possible. I think we just put too much trust, and it's like, well, their offensive line is terrible, but Lawrence is so good under pressure. And it's like, yeah, and he is, but that's not really how it works.
Right.
There's a limit to that.
That's kind of how the Bengals got by when they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Like Burrow was great,
but then it eventually came back and got them. And even then, their offense was struggling because of the pressure, and it's the defense that largely carried them through that run.
The defense was really, really good then too. Yeah, I could see I guess I will trust in Jacksonville for now because they're still ahead.
I still think they should be favored, but yeah.
But yeah, Houston can challenge them, and I think I could definitely see Houston making the playoffs, especially like Richardson's out for the year, so I don't know how much faith do I put in the Colts. I would probably go to order them: Kansas City, Miami, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, and then I will go. Baltimore, Cleveland, and then it's like, or Baltimore, Buffalo, and then either Cleveland or Houston.
I like Buffalo over. I think or
maybe Buffalo, Baltimore. I don't know.
I think Baltimore will still win the division.
Yeah,
I do. They've got.
Lamar's
got
fantastic.
A lot of potential. I'm not quite as sold on the Bengals just being A-OK offensively. I think
I don't know. The
line,
Bengals,
I think
to me,
we're talking about them complete. I think their offensive line is still a big problem for them.
It is. It is. I just think the Bengals and like Burrow, Jamar, and Higgins kind of get the benefit of the doubt that eventually things will just click. Because it has before. And like it's never really clicked long term for the Ravens in any facet. Like even though Lamar's been fantastic always,
they've got an MVP with Lamar. It's clicked.
Right, they got an MVP, but it's
clicked a little.
That was 4 years ago. Like at some point we have to. I don't know.
He's playing like it now. I mean,
yeah, right. I mean, he's playing great now. But that's tough. Yeah. So, and then since I'm a Browns fan, I'll pick Cleveland over Houston.
They're a top 5 drop back team right now in terms of success rate. Not so much an EPA. That's actually an interesting dichotomy. The Ravens drop back success rate is ranked 5th. Their EPA is 16th in terms of passing.
What is that, like a limit on big plays then?
Probably just big turnovers, I'd assume, because for EPA, that's a massive hit to it, whereas success rate, it's just, I think, counted as a bad play. So it probably just means more backbreaking mistakes and just being probably just more volatility, like both ways, like more big. Yeah, just more
success rate measures how effective a team is at getting first downs. On first and second down, a successful play is defined as picking up 40% of yardage for a first down, while on third and fourth down, only a conversion will be deemed a successful play.
Yeah, right. The success rate is like how they're staying on schedule. The EPA kind of accounts more for the huge swings. So the huge swings have been bad, which kind of makes sense if you watch the end of that Steelers game. You know, that would be I think a low EPA, maybe higher success rate type of game. And that kind of makes sense for the Ravens.
Yeah, the Browns are probably bad at both. So
they are. They very much are.
They don't stay on schedule much, but hey, it'll be an interesting way to shake up. I think the AFC is much more volatile than the NFC.
I agree
for sure. But
so now we've got the Stay Hot locks, correct?
Yeah. Oh,
presented by Underdog Fantasy. Did anyone win last week?
I did.
You did?
Lucky.
I did. Lucky. I picked the Rams and the Chiefs. So.
You did. I believe I picked the 49ers and Eagles.
I should have challenged you on the Niners pick.
You thought about it. So are you winning now, Blaiden? Is that how it's going?
No, Theo, you and I are tied at 4. Matt still has 5.
Oh, okay, man. So Matt is in the lead, and if you have not listened to this segment before, basically we have a draft of teams at the end of every Wednesday episode. We draft teams that we think are going to win. once they are taken, they are off the board, but you can fold, kind of like poker. You don't have to go band for band with someone else. You can pick 2 and stop, and someone else then just gets to pick as many as they want. And you have to get them all right. It's like a parlay. If any of them go bad, you lose all of your points. Matt has 5 points. Me and Blaiden both have 4. Matt, where do you want to pick?
I'm looking at these matchups, and I don't think there's too many like big ones. I think I'm probably going to go number 1.
Sounds
This is a
good.
number 1 week, and I think I'm going to take Buffalo over the Patriots. There's definitely some concern with the Patriots defense being, like pretty good, but they've got so many corners out that I'm not so worried about it. And their offense is just so stagnant. That I don't know how much the Bills really even need to do. I also think that's probably the biggest spread this weekend as far as, favored to one team. So usually that makes me feel better about my pick.
It is the biggest spread. Yeah, I didn't realize that one was the biggest. I was looking at the other one. So then,
Blaiden, you got last week right. So how about you get this second pick?
All right. I will take the 49ers over the Vikings on Monday Night Football. I think that's the second biggest spread. So I feel pretty decent with that. The Niners are good. So
I'll take the Chiefs over the Chargers. I think the Chargers have all the problems we mentioned earlier. And if I'm wrong about this one and Herbert beats the Chiefs with a banged up roster, we'll be happy about that. Well, then
at least, you get to be happy because Herbert played well. So.
That's right.
You're either right or you're happy to win.
So I get the swing.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think I'm just going to leave it at that.
Wow.
It's a brutal week for the locks. I'm leaving mine as well.
So, Blaiden, you get your pick of whatever's left.
I lied. The next biggest spread is actually Seattle over the Cardinals. But I don't know if that is a lock.
I don't trust those pesky Cardinals are too feisty for my blood.
They're a little too feisty. They're a little too feisty. It's like, oh, do you lock against the Bears? Well, how much do you trust the Raiders?
Right. They have Bagner or whoever starting.
Oh,
That slipped to my mind. But I'm already out, so I said it. So I'm going to stick with it.
Like taking your hand off the chess piece.
It is.
I don't know if I would.
You have 5 seconds.
I was about to say the same thing.
I might, because you're right. They don't have field, so maybe
2 seconds.
I'll
1
lock
second.
The Raiders. I'll lock the Raiders.
Okay.
Give myself a shot at the lead here. 49ers and Raiders. All right, that's it. I'll be done. I won't do anything else.
Sounds good.
Both sounds good at the same time. But I think that's all we have for today. A little bit of a longer episode for you all. So I hope you all enjoyed it, and make sure you tune in for the recap at the end of this weekend. And until then, thank you all so much for tuning in. And until next time, we will catch you on the Flippity Flop.